This is the last session in this series. And I will start with a question which was given this morning. And if there are any other questions, we can try to answer them together to start with. Would you please define the word mind and the word real in the sentence, "The mind is the slayer of the real"? So far as I understand, the word mind in this context, not necessarily in all contexts, refers to the kama manas, that is, the personal desire mind. What is mind at this level? Mind is a means of perception. This is all as I understand it. You will have to try and understand such things. Everyone will have to try and understand such things for himself or herself. What is mind? It is the means of perception at a certain level. Sensation is a means of perception. The body responds to various external things. Let us say it responds through touch. This is hard. So a little bit of the world outside is perceived through that sensation of hardness, to which there may be a response also, not necessarily of the mind, but of the bodily senses. For instance, if the sensation were hard and sudden, the body would react. So when there is perception, there is also a reaction at these levels. Sensation is a mode of perception. Feeling is a mode of perception. I feel sympathy, let us say. Through that sympathy, something is known which cannot be known by mere sensation. Similarly, when the mind comes into contact with anything, it perceives in its own way something of the external world, and as in the case of sensation and feeling, it responds, reacts. But the mind at the lower level looks at everything from a center which it calls myself, the I center. And the I has its own desires. It wants to be safe. So it might grab food before anybody else gets it. It may say, there are only certain number of bananas in the dining room, so let me get one before more people come in. No, these are all common things. We may think we are very pure and beyond it, but the mind acts like that. And you may observe it and say, no, that's stupid, let other people have it. That's a different thing. But the mind tends to act in such ways. The kama manas. It sees from particular, it sees through a cloud of its own desires, memories, previous reactions, and so on, all of which constitute the I. Therefore, it never sees anything as it is. None of us sees anything in the same way, because each one of us sees through a certain coloring, which is that of what is inside the mind, memory, desire, and so on. There is also the fact that the mind tends always to measure. Yesterday we said the word Maya is measurement. It wants to arrive at some conclusion, to decide what this person is, what something else is, whether it is good or bad, friend or not friend, and so on and so forth. It does that constantly with regard to situations, people, ideas, and so on. And these judgments are of course also based on the composition of the I, that is its conditioning. All the word conditioning has equivalents, sankhara, samskara, that the Buddhists use a good deal. And therefore the mind does not see anything as it is. It is insensitized by all these factors, the desire, the memory, the previous reactions, the feeling of I, etc. That insensitivity makes it react in what we call selfish ways. Selfish action is characteristic of this mind. So the real is not seen. What do we mean by the real? We don't really know, but by analogy, we can try to understand what is real through our own experience. As we said yesterday, there are times when the world looks ordinary. But there are other times when the same world seems so joyous, fine. They say, I could love the whole world, which is real. You meet somebody and you feel an outflow of affection for that person. But at another time, you say, oh bother, that person has come. What is real? Is that person lovable or a nuisance? You can examine many things like that and realize that our fluctuating emotions and reactions do not represent the real. Have we not looked at a tree and it seems so mundane at a particular time? Then the same tree seems at another time to be full of life and light and beauty. Perhaps that beauty, that loveliness is there all the time, and we fail to see it. That is what enlightened people have always said, that everywhere there is not only beauty, but divine beauty. But we don't see it. Relationship, we spoke about this a little bit earlier, is not what it appears to us to be. There is a vibrant relationship between everything that exists, not only here, but even in distant places. In one of the Mahatma letters, there is an indication of this. Nature has linked her empire. Delicate lines of sympathy, I am using my own words, which connect even a distant star to ourselves. The poet Francis Thompson said something of that kind. Because in heightened moments, people have felt all this. We recite, oh hidden life, vibrant in every atom. But people have actually experienced that, every atom vibrant with life. So, the real perhaps is something extraordinary, but this mind, the kama manas, the personal selfish mind, is at present preventing us from seeing. We needn't lose hope. The fact that from time to time we see things in a different way means that that power to see differently is in everyone. Consciousness is the faculty of being conscious, but it has yet to blossom out, and when consciousness expands, becomes more sensitive, the whole world may be different. That's why they say, the Buddhists say, that samsara, what we call the world, so drab, chaotic, conflicting, samsara is here, so is nirvana. Everything depends on our inner state, the way it is able to respond. I don't know if this answer is satisfying, but it indicates something. But the more we ponder on this, the more perhaps we will see for ourselves what this, the lower mind as it is called, does to obscure. In the Mahatma letters, again, somewhere it is said, higher means more spiritual. There is nothing higher or lower, but the quality which is spiritual is what we call higher, and the absence of it is the lower. In one of her writings, we finished yesterday asking ourselves, what is the way, what is the preparation needed for being more awake? That is, to see things as they actually are. In many scriptures, we are told that what everything actually is the divine reality. The Buddha nature is in every flower, in every thing that exists. That is, all the possibility of enlightenment. The Christ nature is in everyone. That is also, St. Paul said, the Christ in you, the hope of glory. The Hindus have said that if you are able to see, you will see Brahman everywhere, and not sordid forms and matter. They all say the same thing. But what is enlightenment? It is complete awakening, isn't it? Or complete to a certain extent. For instance, in the Mahatma letters, it is mentioned that the master K.H. was in deep samadhi. He had gone into retreat. It's an indication that there are levels of which we don't know anything. It is mentioned also in Light on the Path, that there is something beyond what we may call enlightenment. But enlightenment, the next stage of enlightenment is enough for us. Enlightenment is awakening, it's true. But awakening to what? Again, we may not know personally, but we can do what people call stretching the mind, or trying to understand intuitionally what it can be. Would it not be, for example, because we all have some intuition of the truth that everything is one, part of a whole, integrally part of it, not of less value than anything else. All are equally beautiful, lovable. And we feel that somewhere deep within us, we may not be able to live according to that. If that intuition, which is fairly convincing to us, although we are not able to see clearly, if that intuition were to lead us into greater depths, we may understand more of what is enlightenment. Perhaps enlightenment is to realize this wholeness, not merely have some inkling of it, an intuition of it. All without a break, to live in that unity, to be aware of that unity. Forms may exist at the outer level, but we know that the essence, the substance is the same. In the Hindu literature, they have given various examples. Let us say there are many things made of gold, differing in weight, in shape, in ornamentation, and so on. But we know that it's all gold. Now that's a very mundane sort of example, but it's good enough. If we can know that everything partakes of this wonderful reality, if we actually realize it, live in it, and no more capable of being deceived by appearances into thinking that some are more valuable, others are more beautiful, and so on and so forth. But we see everything as the divine beauty, the divine reality, then maybe that's enlightenment. That's one way of putting it. To the adept, past, present, and future are like an open book. That statement gives a different kind of a clue to what enlightenment is. Yesterday we spoke about time and what it is. But if the consciousness is not caught in this linear movement which we experience as time, but is aware of all things existing simultaneously, that may be part of enlightenment. That means there is knowledge all the time. The so-called past and the future are all that is hidden from our view. But if there is nothing hidden, it will be a different state of consciousness. In one of the Mahatmas says to someone, it's not important to remember the details, so I never try to remember them. But says that I know not only what a person has been and is, but what he will be, he or she will be. That is, all that is potential. Just as when we look at the bud of a flower, we already know the bud of a we look at the bud of a lotus, very simple, beautiful form, but we know what it will be like when it opens up and the fragrance it will emanate, how beautiful it is. We know that when we see the bud. So perhaps the adept's consciousness is able to see all that. This is not fancy, because we've all heard about how Mozart could have a whole symphony in his mind before he actually wrote it out. We hear it in sequence, but he heard it in simultaneously. He heard the whole of it. We don't know what that experience is. This is what we mentioned at another morning, that it is a switch over to a different level of consciousness. In one of the letters, the master says that we have no more to do laborious research in order to know anything. We can immediately have an insight into the essentials of whatever we look at. The Upanishads speak of a state of consciousness which is a state of pure knowing. You may have heard the well-known phrase, that by which everything else is known. So that state of consciousness has just to turn round and it knows everything about what it faces. Perhaps even without that, just being, if it wants to know, it can know everything. Would it not follow from all this that such a consciousness is pure, limitless, unconditional love? The love which they say is like the light of the sun. It radiates towards all. If there is something which shuts it out, these are the clouds in our own mind. Oh, hidden love, embracing all in oneness. That may be the state of enlightenment, which can understand the sin of the sinner as much as it does the aspiration of the pure person. For the evolutionary process, the meaning of suffering, the way karma works, the divine plan, how it operates, the various beings who participate in working out that plan, the hierarchy of intelligences, all that we read and turn into information is actually known by an enlightened person. It is not useless to contemplate all this, because there is a law according to which we all attract to ourselves what is in accord with our own vibrations. Like attracts like is an ancient maxim. Certain people have said, if you think about evil, you attract evil. And in practical terms, we realize what we are doing sometimes. If we think of a person and imagine that there are bad qualities in that person may do this, that, or the other, and our feelings of suspicion, of hostility are aroused. Not only would we strengthen all that if it's actually in the person or in seed in that person, but we attract that kind of thing towards ourselves. So think no evil is not a joke. But on the other hand, if we contemplate what an enlightened consciousness is, we meditate on that, we come nearer to it, or it comes nearer to us. Something of those qualities seep into our own consciousness. And if we do that steadily, then there may be a change brought about in our own consciousness. Meditating on holy things, not necessarily on a holy person, but many people find it easier to personify. It's all right. But meditate on the qualities, not on just the appearance. There are pictures of Jesus or of the Buddha, and we think of the picture. The picture may only help us to remain focused and not distracted. But by itself, it's an empty thing. But if we can meditate on what the consciousness of a holy person is, what that person is at various deep levels, so far as we can, not only will our own vibrations get refined, purified, but it may help us, if we are not over imaginative, to go deeper into that to that level of being. I say over imaginative because we can project with our imagination what is in our own conditioning instead of allowing that imagination to help perception. Both can happen. This is one way of preparing for the awakening, to try to experience what could be the awakened condition, the enlightened condition, in Light on the Path. Several times one short sentence is repeated: live in the eternal. If we meditate on that which is real, timeless, it helps to wipe away this petty little self, this great weed, as it is called, cannot flourish in the light of the eternal. But if we attach ourselves to the impermanent and get more and more caught up in things which have no real value, they have temporary value or not at all, it's a different matter. That is why it is, the word pilgrim is very significant, because not the modern pilgrim who takes a plane to fly to Mecca and stay in a 5-star hotel, but the pilgrims of old, they had to undertake a journey, stop in many places, but he could not, the pilgrim does not get attached to a place where he stops. It's just for the night. Don't go out of the caravanserai and say, oh, this bit of garden is so nice, so I will remain here. That's why it is said that you must be like that pilgrim. In this incarnation, we are surrounded by certain things. All right. For the night, it is good, whatever it is. You may be in a caravanserai, in a simple room with just a bed, and you stop there and contented and go next morning. Or you may be in a place where you have more comfort, more attractive things, but even then you know it's for the night, that there is something far more valuable. And so there too you don't get attached. That is a very important part of our preparation, not to get attached. Which doesn't mean being cold, indifferent, nothing like that. One saintly person put it this way: we are with certain people, not only human beings, but maybe other creatures also, to learn to serve and to love them, and not to get something out of them. Now we can examine our own relationship. Even with people who are very close to us, are there expectations, rewards we seek, comforts we enjoy, or is it a relationship of serving and loving?